that's
Okay,
not
I've heard
working.
myself. You got it? Or that's me?
Yeah.
Am I recording? All right,
Was
cool.
that you? Good.
I don't know. Well, it's recording, so whatever's happening here. So yeah, I'm Ted Tagami. I co-founded Mag2 back in 2013. Again, not a scientist, engineer, or educator. So, getting into trouble, the good kind, and then surrounding myself with brilliant people that really know what they're doing and saying, well, Ted, you probably want to look at it this way, right? And so I think inside, I heard this in one of the earlier sessions as well. As we get older, we kind of get calcified a little bit intellectually, right? Or our curiosity, we're concerned about doing the wrong thing or getting in trouble. And I guess I never had that developed or something. Maybe I'm malformed, but there's a 12-year-old trapped inside the old guy here, and that's what gets me excited. We like to bring learning right to the very edge of discovery. So back in 2013, we started Magnitude. A dear friend of mine took me out for my 50th birthday, and he basically challenged me that we could run advertising in space now. And I was like, what? What? First of all, citizens being able to do stuff in orbit, that's pretty amazing. But advertising, even though I was in that field and he was in that field, I was like, that's not the thing we want to do. Let's look at education. My sons were graduating from high school. His daughters were going through middle school, and the state of California had just adopted the next generation science standards. This idea that you could really look at kind of a cross-discipline approach to the sciences. So whether you were in a history class, language arts, mathematics, whatever it was, there was a way to kind of connect the project around space activities. So, since this is an educational kind of forum, I'm going to actually have an exercise for us all. And it's a really short one. It's an abbreviated version of what I do for students when they get together and they don't know each other, usually at lectures or conferences and what have you. And it works out really well. So, I'm just going to provide the first intro. So, I'm going to start by sharing my slides. I will go through our current mission on orbit, the missions we've run in the past. And I'll also show you some videos of like what's happening right now as we go. So let me share my screen and kind of get started here. But thank you all for joining, and I'm always excited to collaborate. So I'm hoping I'll talk less and listen more, and I'll try to wrap it up kind of quickly because hearing from you is really where I get excited because everyone's coming from different directions. They've got different motivations, they have different expertise, and that's really what we need on this planet, right? Being able to look collectively at all the special, unique things that we have, and then joining forces to solve big problems. So this is our current mission in orbit. We just finished week 2. It's nominally about a 30-day mission. We flew up on a SpaceX Dragon 31 resupply. It is our 11th mission. We call it astrobotany because our dear friends at astrobotany.com, they're the nerdiest plant scientists you'll ever meet. They just do plants in space. Check out astrobotany.com. And the logo, both on our stickers and on our mission patches, were done by my dear friend in Japan, Gil Cawthorn. And so I like to say, powered by curiosity. If you're not curious, it's kind of hard to go anywhere in science or in engineering, right? And I think the most profound questions that we can ask actually don't have answers, just more questions. So how cool is that, right? And so being able to take us down the path, non-traditionally, if you will, and to thinking about some of the larger problems we have off-world as well as right here on the home planet. So here's your challenge to get kind of a little icebreaker, and you can, if you want, you can put it in chat or just think about it. But I'm actually going to set the timer for 3 minutes, and this is really important because it's a way to kind of set our mind about what's happening right now. So all of us in this room are now in a starship, and let's just say we're on the way to Mars. So are we there yet? It's 6 months plus. You're gonna land on the planet. You're gonna head your head way back there. So it's slow right now. Current tech, we're looking at not like, fusion power or something like that. And so stuck maybe is not the right word, but we're all here together for that long voyage. What critical factors must be considered? So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer, and it might seem like we're wasting time for 3 minutes, but I do want us to think about what some of those aspects would be. So go ahead and if you want to go ahead and put things in chat, you can do that. I'll start the timer now. And here we go. And I think I need some music in the background, right? Or something like that. But all those considerations. This is a part of a larger investigation in which we give the students 8 challenges. And I have this as a little PDF if you want it. And this is kind of the primer to those 8 challenges using something called in the design world, crazy eights, not like the card game. You just take a sheet of paper A4 or 8.5 by 11, You fold it into 8 squares, and you're given these different ideas that you need to solve in just 1 minute in time. And this is the icebreaker that I usually use to get the students kind of started. And really, what's nice at the end, everyone has kind of come together around some different thinking. All right, just about a minute's gone by, so we got 2 more minutes to think about some critical factors to be considered on that spaceship voyage with all of us. Of course, anyone watching the video is just going to fast forward, right? I see you fast forwarding. I'll try to keep it in the present day also. I like to imagine the world in the mid 21st century here. I'll be a pretty old dude, but the year 2050, what will our world be like? What will exploration be like? But really, I'm thinking of really over the next 5 or 10 years, what are these critical factors? And a lot of them, as we will talk about, haven't been solved yet. So we got about a minute left. I'm going to check on chat. Maybe you got some folks already throwing some stuff up in chat. Yeah, look at that. All right. There you go. All right. Is there a pizza oven? That's a good call. Yeah, look at that. All right. Entertainment. These are great. Yeah, privacy. You need my thinking space. I'm very much one, people think it's amazing, but I would consider myself an introvert. I get more energy by kind of up being alone by my thoughts, but I can't help but share too, right? That's always cool, but I get so drained. I'm gonna go take a nap after this, I think. All right, we're just about wrapping up for 3 minutes here. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop. And the reveal, before I do that, is maybe let's hear if anyone wants to just unmute and say what you thought was most critical in your long distance voyage with all of us. Anyone? There you go, Oren.
Sure. Sure, I'll throw out something. Um, on this long voyage, I think, yes, while we probably have had some time together on Earth before the mission was sent out, getting to know the people, right? Not just their expertise and experience and why they were selected, but also who they are, what do they hold important.
Mhm.
Are they introverts? Are they extroverts? Those are going to be those dynamics, the personal dynamics are going to make or break it. And then based upon that, since we still have a little time, and we all know what our mission is, coming up with a strategy, an implementation plan. Who's going to do what? What is the timing,
Mm.
right? What activities are reliant upon other activities? Um, and how will we measure our success? How will we measure that we're moving in a timely manner to get these things done? How will we help each other? That's part of the getting to know the people, right? Because no matter who you are, or how great your expertise or experience, you've got to rely upon your team. You've got to rely upon the crew. And so getting to know them, feeling comfortable asking for help, for me, those are going to be the critical factors.
Those are great. Fantastic. What great context as well. Human factors, right? Really important. Well, maybe two other thoughts. I see a lot here in the chat, but anyone else like to share?
I can share. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Shashi, if you want to go first. You
No,
had
you
your hand up.
you started. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was gonna say, I was like, I mean, I had started putting in the chat something like the purpose of the mission, because if you're an astronaut on a long haul mission, you need to have something to wake up to. What's your goal on the mission? Absolutely. I agree with Oren.
Oh, I love that. Great mission. Sashi.
I was going to put out there, I learned something when running events that it doesn't matter how badly you screw up the event. The only thing people are going to remember is how well you fed them.
Well, that's perfect for what we're talking about, food and space, right? Thank you for that segue. So the reveal here, our spaceship is Earth, right? And I think you guys know that. But all of these things, how are we going to collaborate and work together? The human factors, food, private space, public space, exercise, our well-being. It's right here. 8 billion people are sharing this spaceship with us. And so I think in context, it's really important. From this, that's what I normally do as a breakout. And then we jump into the 8 challenges that we're looking at in space right now, whether it's psychology or microgravity or radiation, right? All these things are health and well-being, all super important. But hey, let's just jump right into our mission itself. Um, Oops, let me hit the right thing here. There we go. Space station's our destination. I think many of you folks already know about this thing. It's larger than a football field, goes around the Earth every 90 minutes, traveling at an extraordinary speed, 17,500 miles an hour, a little bit more than 7.5 clicks a second. Wow. It's going overhead 3 to 5 times a day. And it's old. It's leaking. It's kind of falling apart. It has new parts. It's like an old guy like me, right? Eventually, you can't replace everything, and it's going to get deorbited. But between then and now, we'll probably end up with more than 300 people that have visited the space station across. I'm going to guess probably getting closer to maybe even 3 dozen countries, depending on how things work. But we have new space stations coming online, and the Chinese got a space station. I think India is working on one. I was a kid, I was 6 years old when we went to the moon for the first time. And it's like, wow, I woke everyone up. They're going to the moon, right? And now with the Artemis Accords, 4 dozen countries signing up to build a settlement there on the South Pole, China with its consortia as well. It's a reality, right? And so we need to start thinking about some of these things. But this is our destination for our missions. And this is what we do. We connect schools, science centers, libraries, and museums around the world to authentic research with the scientists. In this case, here's some students, year 9 students in Sydney, Australia. They're now year 11 students. It's kind of neat to watch them grow up, even though we're here in California, get a chance to meet and communicate with them. And Dr. Natalie Elizabeth worked with us in one of our prior missions there at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. So making those connections, building the bridge between learning and doing. My friend there at the Royal College of Art in London it says, and it's just amazing, his thought on this. It's not the major anymore; it's your mission. So, what mission do you have? And once you understand your mission, then you start understanding what it is you need to study. And with artificial intelligence, with out the world's intelligence right there in your phone, it really is about asking the right questions and finding what your mission is, and from there your major. And so we're focused. If you think about this like a video game, our main quest is to grow the healthiest plant we can in orbit on this mission. And we've got a bunch of side quests, usually by giving the students and learners agency and developing their own thing. If they're a TikToker and a YouTuber and an Instagram kind of a person, then they need to be communicating to the rest of the world what we're up to. And they get the likes and subscribes, but they're also raising awareness about what they're doing in an authentic voice, not some canned thing that corporate wants to talk about, which is really important. If they're a historian, then let's talk about history and how it relates. You can go all the way back to the ancient ages sale if you want to. Here's for our youngest kids, because we do work with all ages. I like to say K to gray. We did a workbook, coloring book for second grade students and third grade students. After the pandemic, teachers and educators were telling me that reading comprehension was far below what they needed. If you can't read and write, it's going to hard to do anything in the modern world. And so this book was provided through a grant through the ISS National Laboratory. And a second grade teacher in Texas wrote the book, and an artist, a primary school teacher in Florida, did the illustrations. I actually have copies of this book available. If you have second and third grade students, preferably in underserved communities, I can get a box of books out to you. Just help me pay for shipping, and they'll be on your doorstep. They kind of go along with our missions in space. It's a workbook, so it's theirs. And they basically help this anthropomorphized bunny get through its predicament. It's kind of like a Mark Watney problem, no swearing, but it needs to rebuild its food system, which is kind of what we do in space. Here's our challenge right now. There are several factors that we deal with in microgravity with respect to the living organisms here with light. How light might affect a living thing, the near absence of gravity, this gravitropism, and then water. A lot of folks that are just starting to understand, and like me, I'm just starting to understand what some of the greatest challenges are. It's the surface tension of water is one of the greatest challenges, not just for our plants, but for many other things as well. How do you move fluids around in microgravity when you've got that, spill a little water on the tabletop there, you see that bubble. So how the plant respires, how it transpires. It can suffocate if you don't have a good air system. It can drown if you're not getting those roots some air to breathe. And that's one of our challenges for this mission. Here's our candidate astronaut. They're a lot less expensive to fly than an actual astronaut. And if something goes wrong, well, we lost the plant versus, oh my gosh, we just lost a little mouse or something else. So it's a lot more affordable for us, especially since we're education, so we're on a budget. This is a model organism for a whole class of plants, legumes. So if you like proteins and you can't bring a cow or a pig to the moon, you're probably going to be looking at plants to supplement. And if you're thinking about in situ crop production on that long distance voyage to Mars, an unsolved problem today, by the way, is crop production at scale. It's mostly done at research. We're doing basic research. We still need to really figure this out. So this is the plant. Our seed line, I actually got I think close to a kilogram of these seeds from the Australian Pastures Gene Bank. Its line is Jamalong A17. It's a research line of seeds. We had the phytosanitary certification for distribution in the U.S. If you're in another country, I have to work through your agencies to get clearance to get those seeds into country to make sure they don't have any contaminants and whatnot. It's kind of just protocol phytosanitary certification, but its genome's already been mapped. Our mission here, since I'm an art guy, really not a scientist or engineer, post-flight will be done by NASA and Purdue University. Um, Context, right? Anywhere in the world, whether we're in Australia or Zambia, they're in Romania or Japan, using these goals here are really, really important in context, whether it's zero hunger or equity, life on land. We can really pick any of these and look at it in context for the mission. Again, maybe some of these might be side quests. Our primary quest is really looking more about food production and understanding how crops behave beyond Earth. And because we are studying these seed lines that have roots across all different, like soybean, chickpea, green beans, etc., how might we make crop production better here on Earth as well? So here's our kind of heritage, if you will. Our first mission went up in February 2017 aboard SpaceX 10. I love mission patches, so I have to have a slide with those, right? You'll notice that some have two patches. If you fly on a Northrop Grumman or a mission, you go up on it, but you don't come home on it. The Cygnus capsule turns into a garbage scow. They fill it up with junk. So we even have, what's up with recycling? That's another challenge we have for the students to think about how you're going to recycle everything. The plastic that all your food comes in, et cetera. The underwear you've only wore for a day, maybe two. They don't have any laundry done in space. They burn it all up in the atmosphere with the Cygnus. So we get a ride home on the Dragon. Thank goodness for the Dragon, right? So that's the kind of our heritage. We started with the Arabidopsis, a model organism for all plants. We moved to microgreens, and me being kind of just the crazy guy that I am, just starting to explore different stuff. A farm boy, educator out of New York, basically said, "Hey, listen, there's this amazing relationship between bacteria that can fix nitrogen, which most plants can't do. I'm really interested in that." And that has pretty much been our studies from 2019 through to today. We're not flying bacteria on this particular mission, just the barometric, but really, really fascinating to look at these the symbiotic relationships. The fact that we can rejuvenate our soil just by planting a certain crop like red clover or like alfalfa. And that's something that we really need to think about. Mars doesn't have a living soil. Venus, unlikely, right? And then the moon, well, dust and rock, right? Why am I showing you this, right? So you fill one of these containers up. You can go anywhere in the world for a few $1,000, maybe under 10,000. Now the price seems to be going up. But intermodal transportation, it doesn't matter what's inside long as it's not toxic or dangerous, but all the equipment knows how to handle it. Well, there's intermodal transportation for space, and many of you know that. I know Ed that's in here, he builds satellites of the same form factor. 10 centimeter cubic volumes are your intermodal transportation for space. Ours that we send up are actually 4 times this. So imagine something 20 centimeters by 20 by 10, or about 8 inches on a side by 4 inches deep. And so intermodal. And you look at where we are right now with space, these rockets that are going up. Those are like the trains that have connected Chicago and San Francisco. So that's great. We got trains running, but what are you filling the train cars up with, right? And so that's what Magnitude's focused on, being able to fill our research up in these labs and opening up for schools around the world. While we do that, we've got this mother experiment in orbit. We have hundreds of these labs all over the world called ExoLab, and they mimic what our lab does in space. I've got one maybe after I stop sharing my screen, you can see it in a more detail. It measures ambient conditions using conventional off-the-shelf components, so it's not super sophisticated. The idea is to keep the price low. Backplane Raspberry Pi, Wi-Fi enabled, connects to your network, shares its information with everyone else on the network, measuring CO2, temperature and relative humidity, light off the LED arrays. The LED arrays are adjustable for wavelength of light on some presets. Would love to improve that, as well as photo period and intensity of light. Micromoles per square meter, right? So more intense light's going to give you more of those photons, which helps the plant grow fast. Too much light, and it's actually not going to have a chance to recover. Just like we need to sleep at night, they need to take a little rest too. It does have a camera, captures an image once an hour. The sensors are recording data about 6 times an hour through averaging. And all this goes up to the cloud. And this year, we're adding some imaging tags called ARRI tags from my friends at Astrobotany to do some machine learning across all these different domains of environments: high temperature, low temperature, high or low humidity, different light settings. How are these plants behaving if everyone's followed the same protocols? Well, that's happening on Earth. The mother experiment is doing its thing in microgravity. Pretty cool. So why even study crop production in space? Well, basically, I'll go back to that age of sail, right? We don't want space scurvy. 16 essential vitamins and nutrients that we need. Packaged food can't handle it. One of my challenges for our students is next time you go shopping with your guardian or your parent, go find me the food that's going to last the longest, right? Probably not going to find it in the dairy section or in the vegetables and fruits, although you really want those. So try to find me something that's going to last the longest. And hopefully it's good for you, right? And so that's really an interesting thing. Don't come back with Twinkies, kids, but there are some challenges. If you look at consumer packaged goods, NASA needs more than that. They need probably closer to 5+ years. Not to 2 or 3 in order, if you're going to send a cargo mission to Mars before the astronauts get there, they're going to have food storage and there's going to be meals ready to eat. But and all the studies have shown that if you don't have the taste, the texture, all those things that culinary folks just adore, if you're a foodie, you know what I'm talking about. You will stop eating and your caloric intake will go down and you will actually start losing health. So you need to have all those things as part of your mission. So that's why we're studying crops. But when we think about plants, some of my friends down in Australia at the ARC Center for Excellence, they're looking at things like pharmaceuticals and materials and other aspects for plants, not just for food. Even just if we see some of our astronauts in orbit right now working on the veggie or the advanced plant habitat, when they're off record, when they're not, kind of have the rec time, they will float over and check out the plants because it's a bit of earth, bit of home. And on that long distance voyage, probably can't bring your pet cat or dog, but you'll have your plants. And they will give you a sense of well-being and a little comfort. What do the Japanese call it? Forest bathing, right? So surround yourself with plants and get heart rate goes down a little bit, feel a little more at ease. This is just an image here from one of our post flights. This was hard X-ray tomography. The slicing submicron levels of this is a stem cell of a red clover. And pretty amazing amount of animations. For this mission, we won't be doing the X-ray tomography because we're not adding that kind of fixative. We're basically putting our plants in -80 degrees and sending them home. Essentially, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We're going to just hopefully preserve the organism as it's grown in orbit. We have a classroom environment for our teachers with the subscribed lesson plans. Pretty basic. The idea here is it's a supplemental program where you can implement in a chemistry class or a physics class or a biology class or just a general class for interest, after school programs, etc. You can actually go to classroom.magnitude.io and sign up at no cost. You just don't get a chance to see the mission live, but it is available for you if you just want to get some ideas for lessons. Here's what our lesson environment looks like. And this is day 10 of the mission that we got up there right now. On the left is a library I just pulled this morning, running the experiment. They're running on an agar bed here, which we're doing in space as well. And you can see their seeds have germinated and looking pretty good. Here are those ARRI stickers I talked about for calibration, both for color. So these reds look a little different, for example. We can true them up post to really look at what color are these leaves. This looks like a darker leaf than this, but they might be the same color, right? So that, and then that to correct for that fisheye lens effect, We've also got these grids here, these checkerboard patterns that help us correct for these distortions. Because those tubes are straight up and down. They're not curved. So the plants might look a little different. That leaf development might look a little different as well. Looks like for some reason when I captured this, I'm now noticing it didn't look like it captured the other data. We do have other data here, temp, humidity, everything I mentioned about the ExoLab. One thing to note here, this is pretty exciting to me. This is when the picture was taken. So we can pull in the Latin long right now. It looks like it was in the southern hemisphere. I don't know where that is exactly, but I dig the altitude, man. 429,000 meters above the surface. So that's kind of cool, right? And this right there, about 3 meters above sea level, where that library is, kind of cool. There's a slider up here on our website. If you're subscribed, you can go back in time. I'll share an animation of this in a minute of what our lab looks like. There's charts where you get the graphs you can download and look at some data science, import it into Excel or Google Sheets, and look for everything you might do under a normal calculation. And you can also compare. So you can see not just the lab it's in orbit, but if you're here in California, you might want to see someone in Sri Lanka or someone in Senegal. You can then log in and see that. We don't have, we've got, I think, 14 countries in the program for this particular mission. So most of them are here domestically in the United States. Here's our concept of operations. We're on the beta flight schedule right now. Rockets being what they are, they move their schedules around. We launched on November 4th, that's the week of the 3rd. We're now in the 3rd week. And when we're in orbit, we do live broadcasts, not from space, but just right here from Berkeley. And we give them a status update. We have special guests. Robin Gatens, I was able to do an interview with Robin there. She's director of the space station and acting director for a commercial. She's been with NASA for 39 years. Her schedule is really tough to get a hold of her. I was able to do a recorded interview with her. Did a recorded interview with Steve Jurvetson, venture capitalist sitting on Tesla and SpaceX's board. He's an amazing space enthusiast. If you haven't seen Steve's collection of artifacts, he's got the largest, he must definitely have the largest private collection of astronaut and artifacts that have been in space. He has a piece of every single Apollo mission that actually has been to space. Incredible, right there in his office. And then that interview there, and you can see on the back wall, he's got a bunch of stuff. He's got asteroid slices and things like that. Really cool cat to get to know. He's really approachable and friendly. As far as investment, he's looking for things that are like, wow, quantum computing, lab grown meat, obviously investing in things like SpaceX because he understands the value. Really cool guy. So collaborative research for all ages. That's why you guys kind of came into our session here. This is me with the Space Tango crew. I'm looking for super smart people. These engineers had helped us getting to space every single time. I basically say, guys, I want to build this. They say we can do it. They get it done. We get it up in orbit. And this right here is like, wow, that's like the pantheon of plant scientists. A few folks are missing there, but this is Kennedy Space Center, the Veggie. You can see Veggie in the advanced plant habitat there. They've got experiments running in these labs. We're seeing right here maybe 10% of that lab. It's a huge lab that runs there at the integration building. Dr. Joy Amasa, she's pretty much, I'd say, the queen of space plants. Her lab experiments up there right now. It's going to start at the end of the month. They're looking at lettuce, outrageous lettuce, and they're doing things in 4 different segments where they're drowning the lettuce. They're basically putting the lettuce under drought conditions. They have a control where they think is optimal, and they're trying to do the fail the least, I think is, I'm going to paraphrase what they said there. And another one in which they're kind of raising and lowering the amount of water to see what kind of stressors that goes under. And of course, a lot of this is genomic research. Very interesting. But this is something I think is really important. If you don't know about TOPS, all the work that we're doing when we're done becomes open, right? I'm not an academic, but in academia, it's all about writing your papers and publishing, right? Getting those reviews and seeing your credentials kind of climbing. But what happens here is people look for the very, very, very novel, and it's not always adding to the body of knowledge that's going to be helpful for those up and coming people. There's still very much fundamental science that needs to be done. What we're doing is fundamental science. We might see something new about water we didn't understand before. And it really is amazing how early on in this journey we are as a civilization. So it's really just getting started. But check out TOPS. You can actually, there's a 101 program here, Open Science 101. You can go through, I think, 5 or 6 courses, and they'll actually send you a certificate. and a badge and some stickers if you finish it. I think I'm on lesson 2. It's like out of the 5. I've been kind of busy. But definitely check this out. The idea here is if you're doing something for science, shouldn't everyone learn about it? Not just successes, but also where things have gone wrong. You should be able to replicate any paper that's published. And if you're not documenting properly, if you're not really providing the protocols that you've put together, whether you're a middle school student or a postdoc researcher, people really can't benefit from what you're doing. So we're trying to get the students in that kind of mindset. Definitely check out TOPS. So welcome to orbit, right? Coming up, when we conclude this mission and it lands back in first week of December, what we want to be able to do is think about what our next mission will look like. I'm planning to be grounded in 2025. There is a chance for us to fly in something called Greenhouse. It's a pop-up lab that goes inside of Northrop Grumman through Redwire, kind of working through the negotiations on that. And it really has to provide some fundamental science, and we have to think about how they've built their system. But for now, it's like join us in these ground trials, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a citizen scientist, whether you're academic, and really thinking about these plants in microgravity. We will be doing some design thinking as early as February, and probably repeating the mission we currently have, and then using that as a template to think about where we can go next, working on the tech that we currently have available. And of course, any new tech that comes up in the next few quarters, obviously worth looking at. Here's just some of our partners. They're not all on here. I have to give a super big shout out to the ISS National Laboratory. If you don't know, on the US side of the space station, half of the astronaut time and half of the upmass that gets to the space station is done through the ISS National Laboratory, right? And so you can go to NASA, you can go through DoD, or you can go through the National Lab. Now, it's not part of the Department of Energy. It's actually a nonprofit funded through an act of Congress that works very closely alongside NASA. And so its job right now is to do research in space to make life better here on Earth. So when we look at our plants again, we're trying to think about how we can benefit crop production here, changing climate, et cetera, on our planet, as well as thinking off-world food production. So National Lab, Tango, I've already mentioned, these guys are awesome to help us getting our stuff in orbit or magnitude. Joint Genome Institute's part of Berkeley Laboratory right up the hill from me here. They allow us to really kind of stretch our imagination and get into real science. Purdue's picking up the lead for this mission here. It'll all be done. Purdue's interesting. They're also part of the LEAF project out of Colorado. I forget what the acronym stands for, but Lunar Environment for Agriculture or something like that. We've got 3 plants going to the moon in 2026 on Artemis 3. And that's Arabidopsis, model organism for all plants. Brassica rapa, kind of another mustard quick grower. And then Wolfia, a duckweed, basically a waterborne plant that's almost all plant, very little root. And they really like it because you're not wasting a lot of carbon. And that's another consideration when I talk to the plant scientists. Others, Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences, got a super big project. It's actually in orbit right now alongside ours, called Powerhouse One. Those students there, through a 3-year challenge, they're now in the 3rd year, so they got their stuff in orbit. They're looking at algae, specifically Chlorella vulgaris, and how it might produce in microgravity. And they've got a fluorometer on there was designed for the first time, and some other stuff as well. Did some work with United Nations through Opportunities for Youth in Africa and the New South Wales Department of Education, the second largest department on the planet. I think New York's #1, but New South Wales has got more than 800,000 students in it, right? Well, of course, we have a very, very small part of that under these test programs. How might we introduce these programs in an interdisciplinary way? And a lot of that resistance and feedback we get is they've got the thing they got to do in week 9 and week 11, and there's a test on Friday. And we need to kind of break that cycle a little bit to get the curiosity rekindled. The stuff that the kindergartner has is lost by the time they get to high school for many of them. Some of them always have it, wonderful. And when you can meet old folks that still have it, absolutely amazing. Best folks to work with are the ones that remain curious and still don't have the answers, although they might be really brilliant in their field. Best people to work with. I'll end with this before I show you some videos. It's the Goldilocks slide, right? Too hot, too cold, just right. And so while we think about getting to the moon, it's going to be pretty amazing looking at water ice there at the South Pole. Venus, super hot, high temps, carbon dioxide, sulfuric acid. Yeah, no, thank you. Maybe floating city, maybe Star Wars style. That's possible, far future. Mars, cold, inverse square law. It's quite a bit of ways from the sun. It's a tiny planet. 2/5 the gravity, 1% atmospheric pressure, mostly CO2. Currently, no sign of life yet. We're expecting to maybe find some kind of something there. I think we might have better chances with some of the outer moons in the farther part of the solar system. But right here, I mean, home world, right? So we've got a whole bunch of Earthlings here, not just humans. Got to think about it. And I think the reason why we did the breakout at the very beginning was to rethink about where we are on the spaceship going through space at a pretty extraordinary speed. It's just all relative, right? So let me end here. If you've got questions, I don't know, Mark, maybe we can pop them up and I'll just dig up some stuff here. Maybe you saw this launch, but I was there out of 11 missions. This was the first mission I actually saw in person, scrubs and whatnot. And just being as close as I was the fifth floor at the closest facility you could actually be here, the VIP space. And just when you get that sonic boom, yeah, I mean, anyone that lives there on the Space Coast gets it 3 or 4 times a week, I guess now. But that was just amazing. We had students from Morocco join us for this. It was 3 in the morning. That's how passionate students are. Right. This is really cool. And I'm watching it, if anything, just for me, just to get the chills again. Right. Now this is actually, we've already docked, but I'll just show you anyway. This is my buddy, Liam Kennedy's company, Sen. If you don't know Sen, check it out, sen.com. 4K video feed from the space station. They're testing it out right now. Those streams are going to come down free and without advertising, according to them, and they'll have some subscriptions for museums and stuff like that. But talk about resolution. This was actually during the propellant maneuver. The cargo dragon was pushing the space station up into higher orbit. And what's interesting, in our algae experiments, I think we were installed before this maneuver happened because I watch a bunch of bubbles just moving across all of our labs about the same time this is happening. Normally, you wouldn't see anything like that. But that was pretty interesting. I have to validate the timestamps, but I think that's exactly what happened. But this is really kind of cool just to see us there in orbit above the planet. Here, I just got this yesterday. It takes a little while for NASA to get it. Here is Butch installing our lab. There goes our lab right there. And that locker in front of him there, he's going to pull that door open, pull out a data card, and install our lab on that locker. Again, just 20 centimeters by 20 by 10. There's another lab that's already in there. That's the Powerhouse 1 lab with the algae. And basically, they set us up, and they float away, and we run autonomously for 30 days, getting all our telemetry back down to Earth, our imaging kind of on an hourly basis. So really appreciate this, to see this in person. I know our kids just get super excited. And everyone is on this mission, even though they haven't put their hands in that box. They weren't there at the Kennedy Space Center at the loadout. They saw the rocket go up. They know they're doing something on ground. And that connection, my background is really more art than science or engineering, but I think any good investigation, any good educational experience has them moving and feeling something, like a piece of art. Doesn't matter what that kind of art is, that artist wanted you to feel something. If you feel nothing when you're in a program for education, or you're feeling nothing if you're looking at art, I think the artist failed or the practitioner failed. You need to feel something, even if you're offended or something. If you want those I don't like those kind of feelings, but people like to produce stuff like that. You got to feel something. And so that's the goal. And hopefully by collaborating with some of you, I might be meeting for the first time. Let's find ways where we can build and join and collaborate. I just do plants in space. So there's other cool things like VR, robots, satellites, all things of interest. And then we think across all the domains of interest, we can get every student excited about something, right? So end that here. And then one more. Here's the time lapse of our plant in orbit right now. So you're the first folks outside of our mission to see this. We've got 3 wells here that are supposed to be germinating 3 seeds each. You'll also notice we have some little free flyers here, our zero gravity indicators that we didn't want to have. This is some arsenite, which is used in our medium to help create some breathing space for the roots. But I think during that orbital gravity maneuver, whatever, some of that got dislodged and not all the seeds germinated. So let's take a look. We got one, and he's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy about where it is right now. This is day 10, I think, for this. And again, we've just finished day 14. So We got about another 10 or 12 days left before they deintegrate us, put us in cold stowage, and send us home at -80s to splash down the Atlantic. And yeah, so that's what we're up to. And I think I stopped sharing. So I'm here for any questions, thoughts, or ideas, and I'd love to hear what people think about our program.
Yeah, I have a question.
Absolutely.
So I'm part of a nonprofit called the Inspired 24. I'm the executive director of innovation with them, and we're trying to build a kind of a crack A team of people who do innovation, but are also just civilian scientists, like just like the what was that website, the NASA website, TOPS or something?
Jobs. Hmm.
Yeah, so that when I saw that, I'm like, that's kind of what we want to be involved with. So, we don't have any facilities right now. We're just barely putting together the first team, and then we're going to try to build things into missions and programs and stuff like that. So, from your perspective, if we would like to have you as like quote unquote customer, are there problems that you regularly encounter that you would want to outsource to a group like ours to say, hey, fix this problem for us? We're too busy with this other thing over here. Can you innovate a solution that'll make this work for us?
Infinite problems, infinite problems. With ADD, I don't know, show of hands here, who else has that affliction? It's like, oh, look, squirrel.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I can go off very easily off the rails here, but I'm always could use some, first of all, folks that help me focus and stay
Mhm.
on mission. But those things we'd like to do next
Mhm.
is always important. And so, Rob, maybe just through communication, we start a conversation. I like to think about whenever I'm collaborating with someone, it's kind of like a jam session, like we're all musicians. We're going to get
Mhm.
together, we're going to jam for a little bit. And, maybe there's a good sound. Maybe it was just kind of fun to hang out. Maybe it didn't really work, but we're just jamming. And there's no pretense, there's no like expectation. But you know what? Sometimes the team actually starts to get something going. And it's like, well, should we go on tour? Should we cut an album? So
Mhm.
using that same analogy, I think, yeah, let's just think about jam sessions, Rob, and maybe we can do something. Maybe it's fast, maybe it's slow. There's folks might know that actually can do a better job of where you're trying to go. I'm more than happy to make introductions and then honestly get out of the way. I don't need to be
Mhm.
friction in the equation if I'm not really able to help. But always interested in what people are doing after I make introductions. So always kind of keep me posted because it's always exciting. Thank you
All
for
right.
that question. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
I'm
it.
gonna friend you on LinkedIn so that we
Right
can
on,
continue.
right on. Good deal.
Awesome.
I mean, I just wanted to say the fact, like you kept mentioning that you don't have a science background, like you come from the arts, but to be honest with you, like you've clearly incorporated a lot of creativity from your arts background into this, and I just think that's really inspiring, especially to those of us who are in the arts field and don't really know where we fit in with the STEM part of space. So no, I just thought it was really inspiring. And I loved watching that little like the plant growing. It's like watching a baby grow, isn't it? It's so exciting.
Thank you, Tahani. Yeah, it is exciting to watch that little thing grow, and it looks like it's doing pretty well. I'm really
Mm,
happy about. I like the A in adding to STEM for STEAM, but I keep it at
absolutely.
STEM because there's some folks that actually have I don't know what that is about that. But what I do with the letters is I actually rearrange them,
Mm.
and I put the S at the end, and I spell teams.
Teams.
I
Right. There
love
you go,
that.
Terry. That's right. Because without teams, you go watch any superhero movie. There's all
Yeah,
special. They all got special skills. You got to put a team together if you're going to solve any kind of problem. It could be a simple problem that's terrestrial. It could be a really big, hairy problem like climate change, or
yeah.
maybe getting to Mars. And yeah, you need a team. So teams I like, and so yeah, that's how get my arts in there. Is of making teams.
I
Good deal.
love that. That's very lovely.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. What does everyone else think? Are there some other questions in here?
Hey, what's Liam's name of his company for the 4K?
Oh, so that's Sen, S-E-N, just sen.com. Yeah. And he actually, Liam's amazing. I've got behind me, is it behind me?
Yes.
There's a live view of Earth right now behind me.
Yeah,
His big
he's
old cargo
brilliant.
thing. Yeah, he has a little device. He's a granddad. He built it for his grandson. And it's called ISS Above. And it runs a little Raspberry Pi. And the LEDs will flash when it's overhead. And they flash even more vividly if it's directly overhead. So whether it's horizon and when it's in the dark, on the dark side, on the shadow of the Earth, he gives you other information, the astronauts that are aboard, the NASA's planned video conferencing, spacewalks, that kind of thing. And he also then shows you the planets as they are above your head, and the next flyby and that actual course, whether it's right there at the horizon line or it's overhead. It's a really neat little device. And so check that out.
You have
That's
to build it.
what?
You have to build it.
Oh yeah, well you can build it for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you
I
that
think he sells
4K.
it to you. He sells it to you for more if it's built, but I have the unbuilt one here.
Right on.
He's been around a while. I tell you, if anybody is out in this business, he's been around for at least a decade that I know.
Yeah, I think a little bit more than that. And he's got more than I think he might be getting close to 5,000 of these. And I do know every NASA center has at least one. And there at Houston, there's one of the gates. I can't remember which one. There's a tent, and the tent lights up using the ISS above, so they know when the ISS is overhead, which is pretty awesome. Pretty neat.
Yep. This is Oren. I know Liam as well. In fact, I had to send my little thing back because I have ISS above, and I also, through Celestis, have my husband, who is on one of the satellites. I can track him orbiting the Earth as well as him and I are my DNA, his ashes on a deep space. It's the Enterprise mission. So
Oh,
yeah, it's amazing. What Liam does is amazing. My question, in a former life, in a former role, I actually led teams that worked with NASA and the Forestry Service,
hmm.
right? Using space data to try to improve projects for sustainability of Earth, which is the big rocket, right? As you said, we're the biggest one. Do you have any projects like that where the data that's being collected, I know you're talking the plants and providing food for astronauts, et cetera, but also students who, as in Senegal or some of the other places where environmental degradation is having a direct impact on them, their families, et cetera, that they can have a project where they can actually maybe help with what's going on there.
Oh
That's it.
yeah. Yeah, Warren, there's so many directions to go in there. So we do have data from this mission that's available. So if someone wants to do the machine learning on it, that they can. But if we break away from what we're doing in space right now and open up to the broader thing about citizen science and collaboration, things that I'm really excited about are simple things like soil survey, right? There's a little kit. I got one here actually. Uh, called just a rapid soil test, right? And so, I mean, primary kids can use this, high school, graduate. And these are little capsules, and you basically check your NPK and your pH balance on your soil, right? And so that's a super simple study outside of doing like a mini ion or something like that and looking for mycorrhizal fungi or whatever that you're going to look at. And so, what's your soil health? And if you had everyone around the world just saying, here's my Latin long, here's the time of year when I did it, here's my results, and you kind of compare. It's a very, very informal and maybe noisy study, but anyone that was involved in that feels connected and now thinks about what's next and something I can't answer. Those are those amazing side quests, if you will, that are really giving a learner agency to explore that and know that, hey, here's our main thing we're trying to do. But oh, you have an interest in this? Well, let's explore that. And as long as it's adjacent to what our main mission is, let's do it. If it's too far afield, like they want to go look for aliens, I gotta need to find them somebody else to kind of get them into looking for aliens, right? But it's like that's exciting, and I don't
No,
want.
but more, I mean, we were doing it for deforestation, right? And so getting satellite images of what was going on their like in their patch
Yeah.
so they know what needs to be planted, what doesn't, the deforestation, water, right? I mean, there was a lot of things that they could work with. I wasn't doing it just with children. I was doing it like on a bigger scale.
Right, right, right.
But I was just wondering, no, that the soil one is a good one, but somehow getting them really tied. I know Githika is working with opportunities for African kids.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen other types of things where space data is being directly
Yes.
used by kids in
Yes.
developing countries?
Yes.
I'd
Yes.
like
And
I'd like to jump in there real quick.
yeah, Perry.
I actually am on the National Disaster Resiliency Council, and I'm part of InfraGard, and I also am a member of the CISA Extreme Weather Working Group, and these are very high level organizations and groups in this country. You may be familiar with some of the names I just mentioned, but two products that you personally may want to check out that we use frequently is Esri, ESRI, and ArcGIS, because with climate change and what the emergency managers in this country and other countries for that matter, what we're having to do, because the historical data is not the same. Our storms are different, our flooding's different, our trees are stressed beyond belief. People aren't getting it. So at the
Mhm.
higher level, we're, using the satellite imagery to real-time data as we're trying to gather as much as we can so we can mitigate situations and that sort of thing. So I'll put the name of those two products in here, but I'll put my contact information in here as well because I'm kind of linked in a lot of different ways through a lot of this. So I was a food manufacturer, so I realize and I represent the food and agriculture sector with one of the 16 critical infrastructures of the United States, and I do that through InfraGard. So by way of, however, maybe I can hook you up with some other things depending on what you're looking for and what you're needing. But it's a global situation, and some of the things that even Ted was talking about, and his company is very interesting to me because it does small scale, but in a very large way. And I liked his idea of jam sessions and that kind of thing. It's a very creative way. And even this particular summit, I've been to it now. This is my second time, and I've noticed several of the people from the last time are on here, and it's like the more we can communicate in these ways and find those weird links, find those things, the more apt we are going to be able to solve some of those problems. So
Mhm.
just so Ted, I'll probably be contacting you too, or you can contact me directly because I'd love to talk to some about your food challenges and that sort of thing because I actually was working on MREs and long duration spaceflight foods.
Oh, wow.
I owned it, yeah, I owned a food manufacturing company for many years. So
Oh, I have a lot of questions for you then.
yeah, all right.
Yeah. And Oren, so when we think about Earth observation, just to close the loop on that, I think the organization that's doing the best right now, unfortunately, it's under a license model, and it's usually for universities. So it's kind of maybe that's in your wheelhouse more than like K-12. And that's planet.com. And they're a public benefit corp. So their whole idea is not maximizing shareholder value, but maximizing value. And the way Will Marshall has defined and described Planet is they want a queryable Earth, one that you can ask questions about in real time. So they're basically rostering the planet every day. And
Mhm.
like DoD uses them for flyovers of war zones, but people are using them for ag, and it's not just, visual spectrum, right? It's full spectral imaging. So there's a lot of stuff you can follow migrations and things like that. And I do know that they have some equipment that gets down to 30 centimeter resolution. Like,
Okay.
wow, right?
I mean, what I was doing before in that other role, I was at USAID, which I'm sure you've heard of. And so I was one of the responsible people for Africa, for the continent. And so that's why we were using that type of data for illicit animal poaching, for all of that sort of stuff. And what I'm trying to do now is explore where I can focus all of the various interests I have with the students in my high school as well as more broadly. So thank you very much.
Super
Interesting.
exciting.
That's interesting. Actually, Ted, one of your partners, Purdue, just received a huge grant to study along with the Food and Agricultural Association and the UN and on, but to study food safety and
Mm.
to target it in other countries. So it's an ongoing thing. And, honestly, a lot of the governmental agencies, they're so they're very hard to navigate sometimes, but when you understand what the types of grants you're looking for, what you're looking for, and how to find it, and I'm really good at that.
Oh, I need help from
And
that.
yeah, okay, right
You
on.
don't make money in
Uh,
education. I found that.
I know, right? But the connections, not only to the space industry, so the higher level of science and nature and all of it, the higher level, and then bringing it down to the companies that can actually produce these things, the individually owned companies that make a filter or whatever it is, and then bringing it down to the people, and so there's so many different levels of it, and it's not just it's not for just the benefit of the people in the United States, it's for the benefit of the people around the world, and that communication factor and that, hey, we're all in this together, we all share the same air. We all share the same water. We all share the same problems. We really do, when it all comes down to it, so anyway,
I love it that you're, yep.
yeah, this
Yes.
this this has been a good session. I've enjoyed being in this session. I'm glad I chose this one. It's been with this summit. It's like, oh, I can't be at four places in one time, because I'd love to hear all of them. But in going through the whole list through the four sessions, this is particularly one that I was not going to miss
Oh, thank
because
you.
of what you do.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah,
Super cool.
and
Well,
it's
I got to thank Mark and his collaboration, the team that put it together. Yeah,
yeah,
there's Mark popping in. Mark, awesome. I really, I mean,
yeah.
my heart is full here, just like just having people comment and getting some insight. And I know there's collaborators here that maybe haven't chimed in. Please reach out. I don't bite. I love to share and think about collaboration. And if I can make an introduction and it benefits you, I'm more than happy to. So please reach out and say hello. But I don't know. I guess we're getting close to the half past, but we got a couple minutes. Are there any other thoughts or questions, ideas? Let's get something growing on the moon with the Leaf project. But I think Elon's original quest to get that ICBM was to put a greenhouse on the surface of Mars. And so maybe that can actually be a reality. They're not going to fly people first, but he wants to show that life can exist off world. And imagine other people want to do that as well. And I do know of quite a few people that would like to do that in a very sustainable way. And so let's figure out how we can do that. And while we're on that journey, what can we learn about making life sustainable here on the home world, right? On our own spaceship. That's what's really exciting to me, this next generation. I'm not a granddad yet. I'm getting close. Got a couple more years, I think. My kids are kind of still out there, but not really locked down with anything. But when that time comes, I just want to make sure that those next generations are given an opportunity. And the best thing we can do, and thankfully, I mean, the world's knowledge is so easily accessible today. Just how do you cut through the noise of misinformation, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that we can self-teach and the tools are available. I think mentoring, totally different topic, but that's super powerful. And I don't think the AI can do that as well as if you're an expert in your field, how might you reach out to a high school or middle school or local school to help guide those students in the future career possibilities and giving them yeah, you can do this if you're really interested in something, which I think is probably the most important thing we can do as adults. So, if there aren't any other questions, I think I saw a lot of stuff in chat. Um, and I guess I'll have to just kind of go through that. But for a longer conversation, please just reach out. It's just ted@magnitude.io. And I'm orbital operations right now, but hopefully I can get over the weekend, I can catch up on mail and stuff like that. Super cool.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ted. And if you were recording, go ahead and hit stop on the recording.
Oh, there you go. Was I recording? Okay, there we go.